We have the worst plane crash in American history since 2001. Then a Democratic senator who was just convicted of fraud and bribes, as well as more on Trump and the rest of the world. Let's get straight into it on Dangerous Waters. All right, the biggest news story of the day, the DC plane crash, which happened last night, a very surprising accident, but also not so surprising at the same time. Effectively, what happened was there was a passenger airline, which was carrying 64 passengers and 4 crew, crashed with a Black Hawk helicopter, a U.S. military helicopter that was also carrying 3 troops at the time. They collided in midair due to aviation issues, lack of communication, whatever it was. They're still going to be investigating the cause of that, but ultimately it resulted in both planes being utterly destroyed and all passengers aboard are likely dead. Already 28 bodies have been recovered as of when I'm recording this video, and even more so will be soon enough. It crashed in the river, no survivors. It's just really a sad story. There's also been confirmations that 2 Russian figure skating champions were on that plane, along with a lot of members of the U.S. figure skating team. Apparently, all of them have been perished, unfortunately. And let's talk about the circumstances behind this, because from what I'm reading, the DC airspace seems to be incredibly chattered, just full of noise. And it does appear that the Black Hawk helicopter pilot knew about the plane and even saw the plane, but unfortunately, just because of how dark it was, it happened in the middle of the night. A lot of things could go wrong. You know, people are people and make mistakes. So that is likely what happened, but there are going to be others who are claiming that, you know, there was some kind of extraneous circumstance, that this was planned or whatever. Like I said, right now it's really hard to say. We don't really have enough data, but my opinion at least is that this was just a very unfortunate accident. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez, who used to represent the state of New Jersey for 18 and a half years, was just convicted of all counts of bribery and fraud and will face 11 years in prison. Menendez was a very fascinating figure. He had a lot of influence in New Jersey politics. He was the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, so huge amount of power, huge amount of influence, and no two ways about it, he sold out. He received gold bars and cash from Egypt. Apparently he also had some under-the-table dealings with the government of Qatar, and a lot of issues with local New Jersey businessmen as well. In fact, 2 other New Jersey businessmen were convicted as co-conspirators with Menendez, and they will be serving a decent amount of prison time as well. A little under a decade, but we're talking around 8 or so years. But Menendez himself is getting 11 years in prison, and he's already 71, so by the time he comes out of prison, he's going to be 82, and at that point, you really don't have anything left. You're pretty much just done. So a lot of people are saying, effectively, this is like a life sentence for Menendez. Menendez, after being sentenced, came outside of the courtroom and he held a sort of press conference. Not really, it was just him making a statement, but he essentially said that now he understands Trump's issues with this court in particular, the New York courts, I believe, and he also said that this is a corrupt and politicized court. So at the end, he was effectively completely shilling for Trump, saying that, oh, Trump understands, he's been through this court process as well. He was asked if he was asking for a pardon from Trump, in which he did not say anything. Although in this case, I really don't believe Trump will be pardoning Menendez, considering he really was just a dirty businessman, a dirty politician. He's received direct money and direct enrichment from 2 countries, and that kind of stuff should not fly. He does need that prison sentence to be set as a precedent for the rest of the Senate in case they are caught doing devious activities as well. There really needs to be some kind of accountability, and this is how you get that done. Let's talk about Trump. The biggest thing that happened yesterday was the federal funding freeze, in which Trump announced an executive action to effectively block all federal funding programs to areas that did not directly benefit Americans, both at home and abroad. And a lot of people thought, oh, this would have been an interesting way to do it. But he messed up big time in this decision. Effectively, a lot of programs, including Medicare and just programs that were meant to help American citizens struggling, were shut down from funding. I don't know who was behind the researching of these decisions. I really have no idea, but whoever was doing that stuff, whoever was deciding which programs needed to be cut, which programs needed to continue, did not do a good job. And a lot of these programs that are vital for the American interest and for the American citizens' welfare were effectively destroyed. And there was quick legal action to stop this from happening, especially from New York Attorney General Letitia James. She ran as essentially a fighter against Trump, and she will be continuing this role even further in Trump's new administration. But the courts actually decided to halt Trump's executive action, saying that, this needs to stop for now. The litigation needs to continue first. Then there was even more confusion when the Trump administration essentially canceled the executive action, and they said they were going to revoke it. But then eventually they came out and said, oh, actually, they're not going to revoke it at all. It was just going to be the memo that came out, but the executive action will still stand. And therefore, they had to go back to court, and the judge once again halted the executive action. So all around a mess, a political mess with pretty large consequences, and really not a good look. I don't know what the objective was here, but it really did not play out the way the Trump administration would have hoped. Furthermore, in the hopes of trying to reduce or downsize the federal government's workforce, Trump issued an email to effectively all federal workers saying that their wages up until September or so would be covered if they decided to step down, and they made the process very easy. Their expectations are roughly up to 10% of the federal workforce will step down, all in cost-saving efforts to try to make the government more efficient, according to the Trump administration. Let's see what's going to happen. I really don't know, but when you're sending out this email to every single federal employee on the payroll, there are probably going to be a lot of issues that will come out of this. For example, let's say you have a very strong leadership position person who takes on a lot of responsibility and they want to move on. They find this as a great opportunity, and then, perhaps the office will be in complete turmoil after this person leaves. So all sorts of issues could arise from that. And also, you're cutting down the size of the workforce in a lot of ways is necessary, but in other ways, it's really more nuanced than just sending out an entire letter just saying, oh, okay, you could leave anytime you want, we'll pay you for it. So I believe there will probably be a lot of consequences down the line. Maybe we'll make the government even more inefficient. Who knows? But that's just my take on things. I really think there could have been a better way of going about this. And just this blanket statement, I don't know if that's going to work. In any case, Trump also announced he was going to expand Guantanamo Bay to accommodate 30,000 migrants that are facing deportation. At this point, Guantanamo Bay has been in an interesting position because both Obama and Trump have said they were going to shut it down. A lot of illegal activities happen in that place, including torture, experimental testing of human subjects, and it's just straight up not really the best place you want to be going to. However, Trump is now going to be expanding Guantanamo Bay to accommodate those 30,000 new people to come in. They will be a holding ground for illegal immigrants as they are leaving the country. And this is by design. This is clearly intentional because they could build this facility in any part of the continental U.S., but they decided to place it in Guantanamo Bay. So this is really a deterrence factor being set up by the Trump administration, saying to illegal immigrants, don't come into this country. You don't want to know what happens. And that's really the message I think that's being sent here. And southern border crossings are actually down over 90% according to the latest data, which is good. It is nice to see that there is finally more control of the southern border, and it's really for the best that this level of control over the border can be exerted throughout the rest of the administration for really the sake of safety and just knowing who's coming into the country. While all of that has been happening, there has been effectively a coup attempt happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This country has seen a lot of turmoil in the past, including armed conflicts from the 1990s and the 2010s, and the resurgence of a militant group who is effectively responsible for a lot of the violence has come back. They are called the M23 militia, and they are taking over large swaths of a large city in the DRC known as Goma. They claim effective control over the entire city while the government is trying to fight back against them, and it is just a mess. There are civilians dying on the streets, people's bodies just laying over the ground according to reports, and all sorts of new weapons being used by this militia that they've never used before. They've also grown in size significantly and have the largest amount of people so far, and it's really not a good look for this region. I hope that they can get this thing under control. But the M23 militia is a very powerful militia. They control a lot of money, they control mines, and they're also effectively backed by the Rwandan government, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo having a lot of tensions and a lot of problems with each other. And the last time M23 had this level of power to threaten the Congolese, it resulted in UN peacekeeping troops along with the government army working together to effectively repel and fight off the M23 guys. So this might be something that happens again. I'm not sure how the UN stands in this anymore, considering the level of political power that it holds has been diminishing significantly, so there might be more armed coalitions coming in, there might be more turmoil, and let's see if different countries such as the United States or Russia or China or anyone decides to put troops in the region to try to fulfill their interests. It's really hard to say. All of that is within the ballpark. It is within the realm of reason, or the conflict could just play out and no one really cares. So that could be a possibility as well. We'll have to see and watch this space for updates. You have reached the end of today's Dangerous Waters episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, I will see you all in the next one.